No, I have a selectmen's meeting. You, right?
On Thursday night.
It's a workshop. See you later.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, Dusty.
Hi, Sarah. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Dusty. Hi, Kim.
Hi there.
Who's the kitty?
Oh, this is Frankenberry. And she snuggles with Summer.
Hmm,
Ah,
that wouldn't happen in my house with my dog.
No,
No,
they are a couple of loves, these two pets.
very peaceable kingdom.
We are waiting for Pam.
looks like it.
I think so. I haven't heard from her, so
Hi, Dennis.
good evening.
Give her another minute and then we'll get going.
I'm gonna text her right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, that's her, I think. iPad.
Okay.
Yep, there she is.
All right. Hi, Pam. All right. So it looks like all the board is here, so we'll go ahead and get going. I'll call the workshop to order at 6:02. Thanks for everyone for joining tonight. We have a few items on the agenda. The idea of tonight is just to get some discussion with the board and get through some topics that we haven't had as much time to deal with during our regular meetings. So, and I wanted to just mention that I did put the farmer's market location on Tuesday's agenda. They had sent a, you'll see that they've sent us a proposal for a new location, so I figured we can take care of that then. All right, so moving right along to ordinance revisions. And as I let the board know, just for everyone else, there aren't specific ordinances we're trying to revise tonight. That's the ORC's job. So tonight's discussion is just on any ordinances that the board has been thinking about that they think we might need to look into in terms of the ORC creating one or maybe updates or that sort of thing. So I will just open it up to board members if you have any thoughts on ordinances that you've been thinking about. And if you can just raise your hand and we'll go from there. Terry.
I wonder if we need an ordinance to help clarify what our policy is on serving alcohol at on public property, since that question has come up in the last month or so, to make it clear that it's our policy that vendors who are licensed are the only, I don't know how I would word it, but they would be the only ones who are who would be contracted to serve. That, you know, the alcohol's fine. To do it like we did for Schooner Fest.
Yes, and for those who don't have the background, this has come up for rentals for the community center. So Pam?
Yeah, I don't think we need an ordinance for that. I think we could handle that with just a policy that department heads would be, maybe have the authority through the town manager or in conference with the town manager to make that decision, but have a policy in place that would address the use of the alcohol on the property and where it would be allowed.
I'm good with that. Thanks.
Yeah, just to be specific is, I know that Dwayne is interested in being able to allow that at the community center. He feels that would be
Right.
a good source of income. And I somewhat agree with that, but I would have concerns on people taking their drinks outside of the room that's being rented and walking down the hallway with it, going from the gym to the senior center or the senior center to the gym, people using alcohol and then swimming. You know, there's no food and drink allowed in the swimming area anyway, but you know, liability issues. So that would have to be fairly specific policy, but I think a policy could address all those issues.
Yeah, I agree. Dennis?
And I certainly agree with Pam. And I think that brings me up to another point that I'd like you to consider. And Schooner Fest kind of brought this to the forefront with me. I would like to see us more formalize how we go about granting the use of town property. Because you know, people come and they want to use, well, for instance, the farmer's market coming up, they want to use town property. There's no written agreement with them. There's nothing identifying the town from that. So I think these two things need to go hand in hand. And I think we need a much more formal policy on the use of town property to make sure that the town is being protected by these activities and that people know they have to pick up for themselves and they're responsible for the damage that they do and so on and so forth. So.
Absolutely. Anything else from anyone on either of those subjects? I think it sounds like both of those would be policies rather than ordinances, but ORC would probably be the most relevant place for those to start, given that they did the sidewalk policy as well. Pam?
Those could actually probably be one policy. If you're covering public use of, you're talking about private citizens using public property, having a policy, how they would apply for it and what the restrictions of the use of property, the requirements for cleaning up after themselves. So the users' responsibilities and then the alcohol usage would be rolled right into that as well as whether they can serve food in different areas and things. I would think all consumption would be covered.
Yep, definitely. I think that makes sense. So we'll put that on the list, use of town property, including alcohol and food, etc. Particularly those two pieces. Okay. All right.
Sarah, I have another one, if I
Sure.
may.
Yeah.
I would like for us the ORC to look at our building permit fee. Our building permit fee is based on fair market value. And as you recall, we ran into an issue with this when Central Maine Power applied for their building permit fee for their line project. We had no idea how to even come up with a fair market value on something as unique as that, because it's just how many power lines are being sold that we compare prices to. And when we tried to figure out what a fair market value would be, we come up with a building permit fee of like $52,000, which is totally unreasonable. So I've looked around at a lot of other towns. I cannot find another town that bases their building permit fees on market value. It's most usually by square foot, which is far less ambiguous than, well, how much is it really worth? Well, in today's market, things are way higher than what they have been. And the second reason, because it is an ordinance, we really should be following it, but we're not. Bruce hasn't been charging anybody based on fair market value. He's been charging people based on construction cost. And I called Stan Waltz a couple of days ago when he was the code enforcement officer before Bruce, and Stan was using construction cost as well. So we're not even following the ordinance, which really kind of should be. So I think that really needs to be reviewed. It may even want to consider just repealing that completely. If you look at the subdivision fee and the site plan review fee in our ordinances, that's up to the select board to set those fees, not the ordinance. So I would like to see us be consistent with how we do things, and have the selectmen be able to set those fees. So they can be some flexibility as to when they change. If it's an ordinance and you want to raise the fees, we have to go out to a town meeting to change the fees the way they are now because they're written as an ordinance. So I would just like for you guys to, consider that and give that some thought and discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Any thoughts from the board on that one? I know that has been a problem, particularly with the CMP one, but I think there was another one too. Pam?
Yeah, I think what Dennis suggests is his final suggestion there, I think is a good idea. Just let's repeal the ordinance, that part of the ordinance completely, and send it to the board to set a building permit fee. I mean, I can remember way back in the 1990s, even when my son was building something here on my property, and even back then they were doing by square footage and by construction cost. So I don't know anyone who was ever charged any other way.
Any other thoughts on that one? Okay. So for that one, does it make sense to thinking either have the ORC look into, well, it sounds like you've already done some research, Dennis, in terms of what they base it off of in terms of square footage, or do we think it just needs to be repealed and I'm not familiar with when you repeal a part of an ordinance, do you then have to, I assume you have to go to the voters for that? Is that true?
If you were going to repeal the ordinance, yes.
Well,
But
just a piece of it though.
Well, it's under our business, our building laws, so we would just repeal that particular section, which is section 1.2.
Okay.
Or, yeah, 1.1, part of 1.2. So it wouldn't be the whole 1.2, it would just be 3 sections there of it.
Okay. So I would assume the next step would be if we wanted to do that, rather than actually write it in as whatever the standard would be, we'd want to put it on a regular agenda, have discussion about it, and then vote it onto whatever the next warrant would be.
Yep, and I would, and you might want to just hold a public hearing on it so that, you know, you could get public input so that people know what's going on. And if it's going to be repealed, the ORC, maybe the planning board could do that. I'm not sure how you guys want to handle that, but.
Okay, well, maybe it makes sense to send to the ORC anyway. They can propose what to take out and then have it go through the regular process, which would include a public hearing.
Public hearing, yep.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that one? Seeing none, okay. And then another one that would probably be more of a policy than an ordinance, that's come up a couple different times would be a code of ethics. I know we've been sent at least one example of one. I believe it was Bridgeton. It's come up a couple different times in relevant to the select board, but also the committees we have. And as we know, we pretty much only have direction in terms of financial conflict of interest. So this might be helpful in terms of being a little bit more detailed. So I'll throw that out there as a suggestion that we have the ORC take a look at some other towns' code of ethics policies. And again, policy rather than ordinance. Any thoughts on that?
Good idea.
Kim?
I guess. I don't actually think it's necessary. I think it would almost be detrimental in a town so small with like the same people who volunteer on so many different committees. We may end up creating a scenario in the future where, you know, people aren't able to do all of the things that they would volunteer to do otherwise without any, you know, and having no one else to take their place. As long as no one's in something for financial gain, I don't really see why we need to do more than what the state law describes, right? So we have state law about this, and I don't see why we would need to go beyond the state law. Not in a town our size. It doesn't seem necessary.
Terry?
You know what, Kim, I think you're right. We could inadvertently make it more difficult by pursuing details when the state probably has the best guidelines, but I'm wondering if we should put into our code, the state code of ethics, just so we have it
Yeah,
close by.
I mean, I
Right.
don't see that there's we haven't had a problem. So, like, I'm not sure why we would do something like that if we have a problem.
It came up over Schooner Fest and my participation in it. And I was really very new on the board at the time, wasn't quite sure where I might be going awry on it, and then realized after I became more familiar with the state code that, you know, there was nothing amiss, but the question was raised, and we should be able to say, no, there's no question here. Here's the code.
Well, and it was also raised in terms of the Waterfront Committee approving or denying permits, and people are vendors themselves on that committee.
I mean, but you know, like, so what? No one's. I don't know. That's my 2 cents. Like, I don't think it's necessary. I think it's you know, people who are worried that something nefarious is happening, or people. I'm not sure what the worry is. Like, but you know, I mean, I'm not going to block you guys if that's what you want to do. I can't. I'm one person, but it just seems like that could be a lower priority, maybe. Like, there's.
I agree. About the vendors on the Waterfront Committee, I wouldn't consider it so much a conflict of interest as an excellent source of input. You know, since those are public committees and people can attend any of them, you have the public's eyes on the committee. So that doesn't bother me either.
Well, and I think for me, I can argue it either way. Because I mean, I'm one of the ones who has multiple roles that, as Kim's talking about, that could limit it in terms of it's such a small town. But I could also see in terms of, well, it's not a problem until it's a problem, right? Until somebody
Right.
actually does do something that's not so good. So I'm happy to go either way, but Pam?
Yeah, so we have this discussion where I work all the time about, we deal with a lot of people coming in and out of the building. And and the answer to most of our questions when we have discussions on things like that is, what does the policy say? What's in the handbook? So when someone comes in and says, well, how do we handle this kind of patron issue? Well, what does it say in the handbook? So if you have just even a little paragraph that's written out that you can say, this is how we manage things, and this is why, as Terry kind of said in her first statement, having something written so you could say, here's what we follow. I'm okay doing this because this is what it says, and what you're saying doesn't fit in this description. So I think and like you just said, Sarah, it's not a problem until it's a problem and someone complains. So if someone complains, to have a little paragraph to say, look, it says it right here. This is what we follow. So I don't think it does no harm, and it cuts short some of those very long discussions we had earlier. Several months ago.
Always in favor of that.
Yeah.
So perhaps we can send to the ORC to look at what other towns have, and then we can make a decision from there in terms of, do we add something that just kind of mirrors the state in terms of the financial piece, so that we at least have that in our own list of policies, and we can certainly choose not to add to that.
Lovely.
Okay. Great. All right.
Sarah?
Yes.
In terms of the Waterfront Committee, if it's a problem that there's a vendor on there or 2 vendors on there, you could always amend your policy to say that, 1 vendor can be on the committee, and that's it. We're not going to have 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever. So.
Yeah, that's true. That would be more like the ad hoc Future of the Schools Committee, where we've made fairly specific positions.
And I know the Waterfront Committee is going to be coming back to you guys with some recommended changes for the policy this year, that we found some things that just didn't work well. So.
Okay.
I would just again urge caution, though, that we don't want to limit our numbers and then not have people serving on these committees, and really, when you're talking about the Waterfront Committee, that one peer, like, those people seem to have the most interest, and it doesn't seem like a conflict to me. It makes sense to me that they would be on the committee to manage that space.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's helpful. So we'll take a look at that. I think I think that makes sense just to see what's out there and then we can make the decision of how much we want. All right, Pam?
No,
Oh, sorry.
I was scratching. Sorry. I didn't itch.
All right, we'll allow that. Any other thoughts on ordinances, policies, revisions before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, seeing none. Moving down to use of ARPA funds. I think Dennis might have some thoughts to start us off with some updates. You want to do that, Dennis?
Sure. So, and Sandy, thank you for sending along, or if it was you, the email from MMA and their advice on going through the appropriations process for use of the ARPA funds. I wasn't, I had gone on the assumption that we were fine doing this the way we were doing this. We have 2 warrant articles every year that authorize the selectmen to spend additional funds as they see fit, and to apply for and expend grant funds for specific purposes. And I felt that would cover us. So I did have to call Shauna Mueller about something else, and I ran this by her. And she called MMA directly to get their thoughts on this. And I've known, and any of you that have been around for a while know that MMA is very, very conservative in their advice to the towns. But they aren't our legal advice. They're not our legal attorney, Bernstein Shore is. And after talking directly with MMA Legal, Shauna told me that she felt very confident that the warrant articles that we already have cover us for this. That the intent clearly is that the voters authorize the town to spend the selectmen to spend these grant funds. So you guys can do what you want. If you want to follow MMA's advice and go through the whole process of having a town public hearing and a town meeting, that's up to you. But Shauna feels we're pretty comfortable just moving ahead with it. So, and if Sandy has other information that she wants to may have, that's
Yeah, this actually came up at our board meeting last week as well, talking about this issue. And what my, also like not a lawyer, not anything, but my read on it was that it just needs to go through the channels that the town has decided on. So if towns don't have the catch-all warrant that you're describing, which some towns do, but some don't, if they don't, they would have to go through the traditional town meeting and all of that. For towns that do have the catch-all cover one, if that's your way of doing of appropriating funds and all of that, that to me would seem fine, because that's what you would do for other things. Some specific grants and stuff won't really go for the catch-all warrant piece, but my personal read from the ARPA funds from the rules was just that it just needed to go through whatever the traditional channels are. So if you're a city council town, you'd go through that. If you're a select board town, you'd go through town meeting, or if you have this other piece that you would go through anyway, you do that. So
Thank
so
you.
I mean, and that mirrors pretty much what I just said. I think we're fine with what we've done. So
Terry?
So that means we do not have to go to a town meeting, town warrant. Thank goodness, because it's onerous to voters actually, because they can see everything they need to see in our meetings, and I'm glad to know that we have a catch-all. If that's the way we've always done it, we ought to be consistent with ourselves,
Okay.
Great.
I know Dennis has a few thoughts on uses for the money, but I wanted to open it up to any members of the board as you've been thinking about the possible uses for the ARPA funds.
well, remember, we've already agreed to use some of it for the generators. So
Anyone?
Was that about $70,000 total?
no, that was 123.5, which left us about 75.
Thank you.
That's the first half. So again, next year we will have this 198,000 all over again. But we've got plenty of time to think about next year. So not seeing anybody jumping up and down saying they want to spend this money on something. One of my thoughts had been to use it for premium pay for our employees anyways. And what's happened recently, I don't know if anybody's seen the Lincoln County news in the last couple of days, but bless you. Central Lincoln County Ambulance has upped their pay scales for their EMS people considerably. They've upped their paramedic pay, will be $5 an hour more than what we're paying. And their paramedics for 5 years of experience plus will be getting an additional $3 an hour. So they'll be $8 an hour more than what we're currently paying, as well as their advanced EMTs and their EMTs. In response to that, Waldoboro has also now upped their pay rates to match. And they're doing that by using their Arpa funds. Booth Bay has already been paying more than we have, but for various reasons, they still struggle to get people. But if we don't do something, we're probably not going to have enough people to staff our ambulance. So I'm going to ask you to consider using at least some of those funds for that. And I figured up what it was going to be. And if we match what they're doing, that would be about an additional $48,000 for the last 6 months of the year. So this is starting January 1st. So for the 6 months, it would cost us roughly another $47,000. And I can't find $47,000 in the EMS budget for this.
I saw Kim and then Pam and then Terry.
I guess I just have sorry about the dog. I guess my question is what happens when the ARPA money's gone? That's my first question. So when we used our ARPA money at my school to hire a bunch of social workers, but they all know that the money runs out in 2 years and that they may not have a job in 2 years. We'll try and put some of it on local money, but we were really upfront right from the beginning. Like, this is federal money. We have 2 years. So because we don't know that our taxpayers will cover that cost in 2 years, or we have to figure out how to slip that in. What do we do with our hourly rate on EMS? Tiger. And then the other thing is, since I've been a select person, there have been like different negotiations and salary discussions. And if we do this for EMS, everybody else is going to want to get in on that. So I would hesitate to just jump right into that. I'm not opposed to it. Like, I love the idea of paying everybody more, but I think that those are two things that we'll definitely need to consider at length.
Pam?
I had the same two concerns. Is how are you going to fund this after ARPA money? And so it's $47,000 for just the next 6 months. So that's, almost $100,000 a year with COLAs added on top. So how are you going to fund this after ARPA money's gone? And the same question about other people who are in town, other employees who would not be seeing these funds. So something to really be concerned about.
Terry?
Well, Dennis, what are the rate differences between us and Booth Bay and us and Waldoboro and us and the rest of them? How does it vary? What are we talking about?
If we stay where we're at, we're going to be $5 an hour less for our $5 to $8 an hour less on our paramedics. $4 to $6 an hour less on our advanced EMTs, and about $4 an hour less on our EMTs.
how many EMTs, advanced EMTs and paramedics do we currently have?
Aaron, can you pull those numbers out for me? Because I don't have them right in front of me.
Because I thought we used to
So we have,
even one.
so currently we have 8 paramedics. That includes Dennis, myself, and a row. Then we have 3 advanced. And then we have the rest are EMT basics, 10.
And all of those people work like part-time, full-time, like how many full-time people? Because I know Dennis isn't doing paramedic work anymore.
So
or-
technically I only have 2 full-time people, myself and a row. And that's another one of our issues is that we don't have full-time positions.
And I do some paramedic work. I still go on calls,
Wow.
even though I'm not doing it for the money. So to answer your question, and I think I mentioned this to you back in September when we were setting the tax rate. This is going to be a rough budget year coming up because we're having these wage pressures across every single department that we have. So when the ARPA funds run out, it's tax dollars that's going to keep this going. Now, we can use the ARPA funds that we have left to get through this 6 months. We could use the ARPA funds that we're getting next year to get us through another period of time. But at some point, it's going to fall on the taxpayers. But I am seeing this in our public works department. Dwayne's having issues with the community center. It's police department in particular. The sheriff's department's now up their wages almost $7 an hour over what we're paying now. And I can tell you that I believe you're going to see Waldeboro's doing their contract negotiations with their police department right now. But based on my conversation with the town manager over there, they're going to see a substantial increase in that too. So the pressure is going to be on for next year's budget. And I think we're just fortunate that we have these funds to help alleviate some of that pressure, at least out of the gate. But you've got, and one of the advice from like Sandy and anybody else that will take you through these ARPA meetings is to not use these funds for something that's going to create a long-term liability for you. Use them for something that's going to be a one-time thing. But, this is one of the allowable uses for this. Having said that, as far as the town employees all coming and saying they want more money, not all of them are going to qualify for this. So not all of them can get ARPA funds. And Sandy might even be able to help me out with that a little bit, but this isn't just all employees. It would just be essential employees that were required to work and face the public. So,
Pam?
So one of the things that you just said, Dennis, really just kind of sparked something in my head. What about if you don't add to their pay rate, but rather employees who qualify receive a bonus for this year, and then another one next year from ARPA funds? Of course, we can't, as this board sits right now, we can't commit next year's ARPA's funds, but a bonus is not something that you're required to keep going forward after these funds. So as they say, don't commit yourself because of these funds to future expenditures, but a bonus would take care of, I think, quite a bit. Can you figure out what that difference in their pay rate would be and give them that bonus at the end of the year?
my only fear about doing that would be giving people bonuses, would be keeping them through to the end of the year. And if you give it to them too soon, they're going to take it and run. So,
Kim?
I'm not opposed to the bonus idea. And maybe it could be, something like you have to get to this certain point before you get your bonus so that you don't take the money and run. I like the idea of having more competitive wages. And I think that if this is what this service costs in 2021, 2022, and this is what the townspeople want, then we put it to them as part of the budget. And I think we should think about like a three-year plan or a 5-year plan to get to a place where I don't know if we can wait that long to be more competitive. I remember just 2 years ago, this town wanting to close EMS. And it was on the ballot, and there was a lot of discussion around that. And I wouldn't want to get back to a place where the people that want to shut EMS down, get themselves back together and start organizing in that direction, because it's been really good. I appreciate that we don't want to lose our staff, but I don't know if putting it all on ARPA, like $5 an hour, how are you going to take that away in 2 years? And that would be too much of a jump, I think, in salaries in a 1 year period, when it suddenly has to shift to another revenue stream, which would most likely be the taxpayer.
I do worry, though, I guess I'm sort of agreeing with the last part of what you just said, Kim, in terms of we're still, even if we don't use the ARPA funds, we're still going to be a bit in a bind if we don't do anything about the wages. And that's, so eventually we'd have to do something. So I wonder if it's at least making some sort of progress in the upward direction of hourly rate, even if it's not the full 5 to 8 in terms of surrounding. Pam?
Yeah, I'm going to say that I think that the bonus would really work. I don't think people are going to leave if they know at the end of this year they're going to get a bonus, which would be commensurate to the type of raise that Dennis is talking about. So they know if they stay through this next year, then they're going to be getting that anyway. And then gives us more time to look at, are there other revenue streams that we could access? Are there other ways to grow this department, more outreach to other towns? I don't know, but I really would like to see, if you're going to make a change, that you make a change that could be sustainable. And I don't think you do it by committing us right now to these higher pay rates that are going to just keep growing. I think we need to have a plan. So I think that I'd be totally on board with the bonus that would be commensurate to this pay rate you're talking about. And they would know this money is coming to them. They'd have no reason to leave because they know they're going to be getting it. So, and as Kim said, you don't give it to them today. It comes out at a certain point.
Terry or Dusty, anything you want to chime in on for this one? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
I think all the points are being covered. I respectfully disagree with the idea of bonuses. I think perhaps my view is a bit simplistic, but if we don't raise the rates or the wages for our employees, it'll get really easy to pay them because we won't have them. So I think what we need to do is pay them what they're able to get in the surrounding areas, and then commit ourselves to keeping those increases.
Terry and then Pam.
I do believe that we need to commit to a discussion. It should be a public discussion at a meeting to commit to looking at wages that are commensurate across the area. We want to be competitive. I don't mean commensurate. I mean competitive. So I'm very interested in that. But the county, for example, has awarded bonuses to first line people in the county, and everybody out there knows it. Everybody out there knows it. So I think the ARPA funds probably are better used as bonuses for service over and above, which is what they've done this last year with all of the extra cleaning and sanitation that a lot of the frontline people have done, and more. I think a bonus is the right target for that. But I couldn't agree more with Dusty we've got to address wage increase I'm familiar with the needs over at the community center too, even though they're doing well, not every year is the same, and we need to address our personnel up and down the board. So that should be a discussion that we plan to have put on the agenda for before budget committees begin meeting. The budget committee begins to meet in earnest on that kind of issue. We want them to do that. We need to tell them.
You're muted, Sarah.
Yep. Pam and then Dennis.
Well, I'll let Dennis go first in case he's covering something I was going to say, but, well, no, I'll just go ahead and say it because I thought what Dennis had said is that ARPA they strongly recommend you not use ARPA funds for something you're going to have to fund into the future, which is why I thought the bonus idea would be good for this year. I mean, I don't think you changed the pay rates this year. I think you managed that pay to these individuals through a bonus, which isn't committing the town to something going forward. But as Terry also and Dusty just said, is we do need to work on the pay rates here. I'm not saying don't work on the pay rates. I'm saying use the money in a way that is not longstanding, and let's work on the pay rates in next year's budget. And have a plan for moving these, keeping these people, keeping the town in the marketplace for these positions.
Dennis?
To Terry's point, on the agenda for Tuesday's night is asking the select board to set a date for a joint meeting with the budget committee. It's required by our ordinance anyways that the board meet with them between town meeting and December 15th to review the current budget and discuss any budget shortfalls or any appropriation issues that we're having. And clearly, this probably should be a topic that's in that. So that's already in the works. I guess I would ask that you, Erin's closer to these people than I am currently. And I think she would certainly have a better idea as to whether or not the staff would accept such a bonus or not. So I would ask that, you hear from her on this.
Erin, are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here. So I know that many of them work for these other services, and many of them are looking at whether they stay working their set 24-hour shift with us, or if they're going to go and work at the other services for more periods of time and basically only give us time when they have it. I'm really, really afraid that I'm never going to leave the station and that I'm always going to have to occupy a truck, and I can't continue to do that. So I do fear that if we don't fix things, it's just going to get worse.
Thank you, Erin. Terry and then Dennis. You're muted, Terry.
Sorry, Erin, you're saying that the EMS staff is looking to get a pay raise now, some kind of commitment now to a pay raise. Is that correct?
So what I'm trying to let you guys know is that people who are working at Starbucks are making $3 to $5 more an hour than some of our folks. And they don't have to go out in the rain and the snow, and they don't have to be subjected to the things that our folks are being subjected to, and they don't have to worry about what they're taking home to their families. And it's a big ask. Like, we make so much less than an RN, for example. A paramedic has a very large scope of practice, and we make far less than an RN. I had one of my EMT basics who went to school so that he could not make $15 an hour, and now he's making $29 an hour as a brand new graduate nurse. So, it is what it is. We need to decide if somebody who's able to save your life is worth more than somebody who's making your coffee.
So the answer is yes. Y'all are, they're looking for a pay raise and not just a bonus.
No, because the issue is at the end of the day, a bonus is great. And I'm sure they would appreciate that if that's all that we can figure out. But I do know that the majority of my folks work for the other surrounding areas. They work for Waldoboro, they work for CLC, they work for Booth Bay, and they're going to ultimately say, hey, I can't give you the 24 hours there because I'm going to go work at Waldoboro and CLC, and I'm going to make that $8 more an hour because I'm a paramedic and I've been there for so many years. So I'm fearful that I'm going to have no one working for me.
I hear you. I
Dennis?
hear you.
And then having sat in Aaron's shoes, the other aspect of just not giving it to them now is, well, I'm going to go to work for Wiscasset for $20 an hour, but CLC is short today and I can go work for them for $25 an hour at overtime and make more than what I'm going to get with my bonus at the end of the year. And then they're going to call out at the last minute and she's going to have a situation that she has a shift that she can't fill. And most employees want the money in their pocket now. They're just not, I'm not totally opposed to the idea of a bonus, but.
Kim?
I hate that the situation is like this, right? That this is what's happening with salaries and hourly rates. I totally get it. I don't think we can just fix it with this $75,000. And I know that if we present a budget, right, that includes hourly pay increases to make everybody make as much as the guy who's pouring your coffee at Starbucks. I'm sorry that it's like that. I hate it, but the whole thing will get voted down. I can't see us presenting a budget, with a mill rate that jumps more than 1.5%, right? And it just won't happen. It's, maybe it'll happen. I don't know. A lot of new people are moving to town who think our taxes are really low, but a lot of people can't afford it. And since I've been on the board, we try and keep our mill rate increases under 2%, and salary increases are never more than 2%. And it still is a struggle. Like there's still people who vote some of these warrant articles down. And I don't know what the solution is, but I feel like we're not going to solve it with $75,000 of ARPA money. And also in terms of sitting in the truck, can we ever just, I don't want Erin to live in the truck. So if there's nobody to work the shift, what happens if the calls just get rerouted someplace else?
If they can get rerouted someplace else. And that's the big question. If CLC is short-staffed and Waldoboro is short-staffed, we're covering Booth Bay quite often because they're short-staffed. There's a real danger that it could take a very long time for an ambulance to get on scene. Woolwich has already called and asked us to help cover some of their day shifts over there, which we don't, we just don't have the capacity to do that right now. So, I'm sorry that we're in this position. I wish that CLC and some of these others would have taken a much go slower approach than what they took, and instead of just jumping off the barrel right into over the cliff, but it's what they did. So.
Other thoughts from the board?
Well, it sounds like there's a shortage of people, right? And so that's why the money is increasing, because it's just like with students, well, we have this finite number of students and all of the area schools are competing to get them so they can stay open. And it sounds like that's what's happening with all the EMS services, right? We have this finite number of employees and everyone's competing for them.
Yeah, I think that is part of the problem. But this isn't something new. This has been something that's been building for a period of years. It's just but certainly COVID exacerbated the situation when people got out because they just didn't want to deal with it. So that made it a little shorter staffed. And you're right, this is a Band-Aid. This is a very short term, and it's not a fix to the problem. But the hope, I guess, is that if we get EMS pay or law enforcement pay, because they're headed down the same road as far as the number of people go, as people leave law enforcement, if you get the pay up to a level where it attracts people back into it, then we can start filling in some of these holes. But if there's 100 positions in Lincoln County right now and there's only 50 people to fill them, it doesn't matter how much you pay. There's still going to be 50 people to fill them. We need to bring new people in. Or we need to find a better way to do this more efficiently and say, well, maybe every single town shouldn't have its own ambulance service, and we really need to be looking at a regional service. But again, that's something that just isn't going to happen overnight. That's something, those conversations that are going to take many months to come to fruition. And we've tried this before, and it just never has gone anywhere. But maybe this time it will be different. I don't know.
So what's the board's pleasure? Should we put this on as an agenda item at an upcoming meeting so then we can formally make a decision? Kim?
Did anybody else have ideas for the $75,000 besides this? I sort of thought that we could use it towards the White's Island footbridge.
I
And
tried so hard on that.
Deal with our
Yeah.
EMS stuff in a different,
I don't see that. Sandy might disagree with me. I don't see that as being an acceptable use.
Oh, okay.
Well, with the new,
Just a second. Sandy?
I agree with Dennis. Infrastructure like that is not really part of it. Really, it's just water, sewer, anything for roads or anything like that is not really covered at all. Unless maybe it was like a road to a really important hospital or something, but.
Nice try. I give you credit for
Yeah.
trying.
Good thought. Pam?
I think all of this discussion is, no one here has said that they don't believe that this money could be used towards our emergency services people. I'd like to see this go to a regular selectman meeting where we can have public input and vote a decision on it. I'm gonna strongly push for bonuses for this time and work into next year's budget, a regular pay rate increase. And I, you know, if people know that's coming, I think they'll be responsible. They're obviously responsible people. They wouldn't be in the field they're in if they weren't. So, but I'd like to see it go to a select board meeting for public input. And I think we all agree that this would be a good use of the funds, but how it would be delivered, I'd like to make sure we're not doing something going forward because we're told that ARPA funds are not supposed to start something like that that's going to go forward. That's why I said bonus. I think we need to, you know, follow the rules and get the public to vote in.
Dennis?
If I could just clarify, Pam, it's not a rule that you can't use them in this manner. It was just the advice that was given that you know, it's just not a good idea to create a long-term liability for yourself, which I certainly agree with. I mean, we can schedule, if you want to schedule this for the meeting for the 16th, we can schedule it as a public hearing if you want. That might bring in more public to weigh in on how they feel about this.
I like that idea. That sounds agreeable to the other board members?
Absolutely.
Okay, seeing nods.
I'll put it on the agenda.
Thank you. And thank you, Erin. All right, so moving on to hybrid meetings. So we put this on here just because we had brought up a couple different times the fact that obviously hybrid meetings are extremely difficult and not anyone's first choice. Part of it's the difficulty is that we don't necessarily have the best equipment in the town meeting room. So wanted to just have a couple minutes of discussion here in terms of thoughts on whether we should consider upgrading some of those pieces of equipment or not. Pam?
Which takes us back to ARPA. Because the amount of money that Dennis is proposing for pay rate adjustments for staff, for some staff, leaves quite a bit of money left over. So I would think that upgrading our meeting electronics would be right in with ARPA funds, making these meetings more accessible to the public and more stable, I think fits right in there.
Yeah, and I should mention that not only are we talking about just when the board is hybrid, in terms of some of us maybe at home or in the room, but also to Pam's point, the accessibility factor in terms of the public watching and interacting. So is that correct that this is something that we could use ARPA funds for, Dennis?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, it plays directly into the pandemic and trying to keep people safe, so.
Other board member thoughts on this one?
Just to be,
Terry and then Kim?
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. Just to be clear, hybrid meetings is one thing, but streaming our meetings, even when we are all present, is another, which I would be greatly in favor of.
We already
So
do
that,
that.
well, okay, but people out there don't know. Communication is not all that swell.
Well, actually, we'll get to that too, but all of our meetings are streamed live on YouTube. And our Zoom meetings are simultaneously streamed live on YouTube.
Wow.
And that's been going on for I don't know how long. Kim, how long have they been using YouTube? For quite a few years, right?
Since they came off of television, right? It used to be on Lincoln County TV, and then it switched from LCTV to YouTube. But the cameras and the technology in our meeting room are about as old as that change. So we could definitely have a better YouTube presence just by upgrading our cameras and I've heard a lot of people in the community complain about the sound, like they watch, but they can't really hear. And there's all sorts of neat gadgets that we could have now, like, you know, cameras that like move and follow the voice of the person who's talking. And
The owl.
owl. Yep, I agree with that was my comment from before, Sarah. Just that I agree.
Sure.
Technology, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely been an issue in terms of the sound, even when the video is fine. And you can't, right now, you can't see if like somebody's talking during public comment or anybody who's not the board, sitting up at the board table, you can only hear them, and that's iffy. Just because we don't have, two different cameras or whatever. So. Any other thoughts on that one? So it's sounding like Dusty?
Just want to clarify what we mean by hybrid meetings. The one meeting that we had that we called a hybrid meeting was very difficult and kept me from participating in a large part of it. So.
Yep. So what I mean when I say hybrid meetings is if for some reason, if someone isn't feeling well, but is up to meeting, or I don't know, there's a snowstorm and someone doesn't feel comfortable driving in or that kind of thing. So it's both that and also by getting the upgrades to make that a workable meeting, you would also be upgrading the experience for anyone who just wants to watch anyway on the live stream. Does that clarify more?
Yeah, and I assume we'd have a chance to look at the equipment that we're looking at buying and try it out and things like that. I remember somebody, maybe it was Terry, mentioned having a situation where there's a camera in front of each of the members in the meeting. Not the audience, but all the select board members and town manager have their own camera, something like that. Whether they're in the town hall or at home.
Yeah, and then it's more like a Zoom experience, even if you're in.
Yeah, an in-person Zoom experience. We can find something all, you know, brand new and innovative. The world will love us.
So it sounds like everybody's generally in agreement that this is something we should look into. I think it would be great if we could come up with some potential options, and as much as we could try anything out, that would be ideal. Do we know of anyone who's doing it well, or anyone who's an AV expert?
Oh, I'm sure I can come up with something. Waldeboro actually seemed to have a pretty good setup when I went to one of their selectmen's meetings just recently. You know, they had a big screen TV, they had a couple of cameras, they had somebody that was actually sitting there monitoring everything, which, you know, I don't, but so I'll come up with some options and, you know, bring them back to you and you guys can decide what you want to do.
Okay, thank you. And that reminded me, that's another option too. There are probably other towns meetings we could take a look at just to see how well it does work in terms of their recorded meetings and that kind of thing. So, and
Actually,
or go visit.
the county, the planning office actually is, Sandy's signed off, but the planning office actually has a pretty good system over there as well. So.
Okay. Great. So moving on to the Text My Gov presentation. And I'll just preface this by, I had asked Dennis to look into whether there were any systems out there that are basically notification systems for residents. Those who've been in school systems may be more familiar with this, where you basically are either required, or in a school setting sometimes, but you opt into either text or email messages, often for emergency notifications. But I'm thinking about things, both emergency notifications, like if a road's flooded, but also things like the polls are open today, or there'll be construction on this road, that kind of thing. So basically, that's where this is coming from. So is it Dallin? Hi.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Thank you, guys. Good. Thank you. I wasn't just talking to you. Sorry. Good evening, select board members. I appreciate you guys taking 15 minutes of the time to look at this. Dennis, I appreciate you setting this up and looking into the program. Ms. Whitfield, if you don't mind, do you mind if I share my screen with the board members?
Sure. Dennis may have to.
I think I made you a co-host, so you should be all set.
There we go.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it. Hopefully you will be able to see my screen okay. Again, thank you. I'll leave about 5 minutes on the end of this presentation, so if there's any questions that need to be answered, please drop them into the chat box and we can definitely address them at the end of this demonstration. TextMyGov is a platform made for citizens to be able to communicate with their municipality. We're highly configurable. There's no downloaded needed internally or externally. So as the municipality, you will not have to download anything, and you will not be required to have a cell phone either. So you won't be getting text messages at 2 o'clock in the morning. This is a web-based software. We do have a customized media kit for each agency to get the information into the citizens' hands. We also have unlimited users, training, and support. What that means for you as a municipality is we are not going to charge you per user internally or those that decide to use the system externally. I would like you guys to just experience the system itself as a citizen. I have a number that's on your screen at this moment. It's a 435-265-4446. Keep in mind, board members, this is just for me locally. This is a local number for me. I'm in northern Utah. For you guys, obviously, it would be a 207 area code that you would be utilizing. Go ahead and text any of those words that you see on my screen. Text either hi, or you could text the word event, or you could text the word hunting to that number. As you are doing that, the 3 things that we will be going over briefly today is how citizens will be able to report issues through text messages, how citizens will be able to find information just through text messages, which you are experiencing at this moment, and how citizens will be able to receive alerts. And I know that's one of the major issues that you have talked about quite frequently, about citizens being able to receive notifications from your municipality. As you guys are texting in that number, I am going to go ahead and pull up my internal side of Text My Government, and I see that a few of you have texted in. So I'm going to give you another 30 seconds real quick if anybody has not got that number, and then I will take that number down here. Perfect. Now I switched my screen to the internal side of Text My Government. This is what the municipality would be looking at. Please keep in mind, we only work with government entities. So the right to act, no, the privacy, FOIA compliancy, that all falls in line with this. So you are going to be able to export all your message and your number logs. These are functionality pieces on your dashboard that you see. What I'm going to do is show you how citizens and how you will be able to utilize each of these three aspects of our program. If I click here on the notification side, this is how citizens will be able to be notified of certain things going on inside of your municipality. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be able to set up as many groups as you choose to, for the citizen to choose to receive notifications. So if I was a citizen and I only wanted to receive city alerts, and I wanted to know about COVID alerts and elections, I would choose these words and simply text in the keyword. Now you as a municipality, you would come over here, type in your message, select the group you want it to go to, and press send. And that's how you would notify your citizens of each activity that's going on inside of the groups. Again, you're going to be able to choose as many or as few as you would like to. You also have the option of scheduling notifications out. So if you know every Tuesday you have a board meeting, let's send out the Zoom link to the board meeting to everyone that chose opt into that. You will be able to send that out. All you have to do is pick the day, the time, and which group you would like it to go to. This is our notification part of our system. The next part I'm going to take you into is the part where citizens are going to be able to find information. What we're going to be able to do is we're going to have all these words that's on the left-hand side. So if somebody texted in right now and said, what's the agenda for Tuesday? It would take them to a link or to the information, and it would kick them back this response that says, thank you for contacting the city of Harriman, which is obviously not yours. I have a few demo sites going on right now. To see upcoming events, please click here. So it takes them directly to the information on your city website or to any information that you choose to have them go to. The great thing about this is maybe you don't want it to go to a specific link. Maybe you just want them to please contact you at that number. You can do that also. You're going to be able to input any information and as much information, up to 400 characters, as you choose to. So citizens are going to be able to text in and say, what is going on with city council? And it will kick them back that response that you want them to know about that. Or it will take them to a specific link. This is the part where you're going to be able to add information. Obviously, I've got 4 pages, but you can add as many response words as you would like to. The next section that I'm going to take you into is where citizens are going to be able to report information to you. Again, all I went to is set up flows, and it's going to take me to this page. Again, this is what you as the municipality will be seeing. If any of you want to try out this part of the system, please feel free to. Go ahead and text the word code to that number. What we've done with this, ladies and gentlemen, is what we've made it so that a citizen can report an issue to you guys simply by texting in any word. So now they're going to say, okay, well, what's your code violation that you're responding to? All right, well, it's graffiti. Cool, well, what's the location of it? What's your name? Upload a picture of it. A citizen is now going to be able to take a picture of, maybe there's a tall grass complaint. They can take a picture of it and send it to you. The great thing about this, select board members, is it's going to do 3 different things for you. First of all, it's going to email it to the right departments for you. You get to choose who it goes to and how many people it goes to through an email. The other thing that you have the option to, and you get to choose, is it could potentially text it to the right department also. So let's say your animal control person or your code officers out in the field, it can get sent to them as a text message. The last thing it's going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is it's going to keep track of it on the dashboard. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to just view somebody's response. Obviously, I'm going to take this one. It has the date and the time that you were able to send that notification into. So I'm going to view it right here, ladies and gentlemen. I can see the response that it was sent to. I can see what the citizen said. I can see the time that it was sent to and the time my system was able to respond back to you. The other thing is that I'm going to be able to do is I will be able to respond to you. So if you see something that you want to respond to, you can say thank you. Now, I'm not sure whose number this is, and I hope you have unlimited text messaging, which I imagine you do. So you should be getting a response back that says thank you. Now, whoever's running this program will now be able to see, hey, this is great. Great. It was responded back to. The last feature I'd like to show to you on this part of it to keep it organized for you as a municipality is you're going to be able to assign this. So let's say that, Terry, you're in here and you're like, hey, I'm running this program. I know that this needs to go to code enforcement. I'm going to save it now. So now Terry has saved it under code enforcement. And let's say that Dusty is the code enforcement officer. He can come in here and say, let's see if there's anything that's assigned to me today. Well, I only have one thing. Thank goodness I get off early. So you're going to be able to keep track of these records and organize them all inside the system for yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, that's kind of the three aspects of our program. It's making it easy for you as the municipality to release some of those phone calls by them being able to find the information by simply texting in, being able to report information to you, and finally being able for you guys to be able to push out those notifications. The last piece that I want to mention on that, the pushing out notifications, let's say Sarah sends out a mass text that says, hey, trick or treat is no longer this week. I imagine all those people will be like, why? What's going on? Why are you doing this to us? The great thing about that, Sarah, they are not going to be able to respond to those push out notifications. So you are able to push those out without any response back. If they want to communicate with you, they will simply go into the different side of it and text and say, hey, what's going on with this? And then they could say, you could have a one-word response set up that says Halloween, and it would explain why you shut down Halloween, Sarah. Those are, and maybe Sarah's not the right one that's going to shut it down. I see everyone smiling, so, but those are
record, I'm
the
not
three.
shutting down Halloween.
Well, I know this is recorded. This might be live. I apologize for everyone freaking out now in your municipality. Those are the three aspects. I will open it up for questions for you guys. I want to leave that time for you guys also.
Terry?
So, Dallin, are we going to have to hire another person to take care of all of this on our end? I hear you saying, you know, this is automatic, no problem, but it sounds to me like there's a lot going on and someone's going to have to manage it on our end. Have you discovered, I mean, do we need a new IT guy?
Terry, do you mind if I address that question or?
No, I'm
Oh,
asking you.
Go ahead.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I apologize.
No, you know the protocol. That's lovely. No, I'm asking you directly.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. And here's the reason why. I guess I could just leave it at that. You seem satisfied with that answer. No, what we've done with this program, Terry, is we've made it so that we have unlimited training. We know that you don't have a full IT department. We understand that. We work with a lot of municipalities, Terry, that they don't. And that's the great thing about our program is that once it's set up and good to go, there's not a lot of hands-on that you're going to have to do with. It's more of, hey, I want to send out a notification. I'm just going to go to the notification part and send it out. It's not going to be, and that's the great thing is it's unlimited support. So let's say, Terry, that you're assigned to put in some words. All you do is you call us up and say, hey, I don't have time to do this. Can you do this for us? and we will take that on for you.
Hmm.
And I would just say, Terry, to that point, I would imagine us using a system like this mostly for just communication out. I wasn't aware, frankly, that it could do the kind of back like reporting code violations and stuff, which I think is cool, but at least for my initial purposes, the idea was to get information out in general. So.
And people, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. And Dallin, your company actually does all the setup, because as I remember, there was a setup fee that went along with this, right?
Dennis, that is correct. We do all the setup for you. We ask that you train with us. So it's an hour whenever you guys have time. So the great thing too, also, Sarah, I would like to address to you is if, as you are unaware of the other parts of the system, what we can do for you guys, and we've done this for multiple municipalities, is we just set up the notification part of it and say, let's just run with this for right now. Let's get you comfortable with it, and that's it. And then as you get more familiar with the program, you're like, you know what, let's start expanding out a little bit more. Then you call us back up and said, hey, let's do this. Again, it's unlimited. We're not lawyer. I hope there's no lawyers in here. We're not going to charge you by the hour. It's unlimited time with you guys.
Other questions? Pam? You're muted.
I forgot about that. So you just mentioned the setup fee. So I'm going to ask, what's the expense for this? The setup fee, annual fees, et cetera.
Yes. Let me share my screen one more time with you, and I will show you that in black and white, if you don't mind. Is that okay with everyone? I'm not sure. Okay, sounds good. Let me share my screen with you, and I'll show you the proposal that we have sent over to you, to your municipality. This is the cost of the package. It's $3,700. With that, it includes the local phone number, the short code number, the unlimited users department support, 50,000 text messages for you. Now, keep in mind, if you do not use all 50,000 text messages, we're going to go old school, and it's going to roll over to the next year for you. So let's say that you use 45,000 text messages. That next year, obviously, we're going to start out with 55,000 text messages. You'll always have that. You also have 10 gigabytes of online data storage. What that means for you guys is you can have each gigabyte equals about 700 pictures. So if you only have a municipality of teenagers, you might run into a problem, but I highly doubt you have that many pictures being sent in to you. The other thing is this is the text messages. If you run out, we are not in the business of making money off text messages. We sell you at cost. So if you needed to purchase extra text messages, this is the cost. The implementation fee is $1,200. So the first year would be $4,900. And then every year after that, it would be $3,700 on an annual fee. Pamela, this is a 2-year contract also, just to let you know, and then it reverts to a year-to-year contract for you. You own all this data, Pamela, also, just to let you know. So if you decide to go in a different direction, all you do is you call us up, give us 60 days, and we will send over all of the data in a consumable file for you so that you have record of it for your FOIA compliancy. Did that answer your question okay, Pamela?
Yes, completely. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions? At this point? Okay. But Terry?
So people have to opt in individually. This is not going to go to people who do not opt in. Got it.
That's correct. All right. Well, thank you, Dallin. I really appreciate it. I just wanted everybody to be able to see what this kind of system could do, just for some initial food for thought. So I appreciate you being here tonight and wading through the other agenda items.
No, thank you. And if anyone needs an additional or would like to see more in depth of how the program operates and works, we're more than happy to do additional demos one-on-one.
Thank you.
Perfect.
This is really cool, Sarah. Thank you. I appreciate it. the opportunity to look at the program. Really cool.
All right. Well, thank you. And just to sort of wrap up this part, this is just one option. Obviously, this would have to be put in the budget. But I really hope it's something we'll think about, because I think it could really help everything from, Water Street's closed today for an event to there's going to be construction on your road to the polls are open. I just think it could really help with some communication and transparency in terms of everything coming out from us for information. So I appreciate you all taking the time to listen and ask questions. So I hope we can come back to this at some point. All right. Thanks again, Dallin. Oh, he's gone. Yeah, and I didn't, it's obviously a little awkward to say in front of a company, but obviously that's just one company. So if we did decide to move forward with something like this, we would obviously look at multiple. Thank you, Dennis, for setting that up. Appreciate it. All right, any other items before we close the workshop? Okay, not seeing anyone. Oh, Dwayne? Oh.
Muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm sorry I was late. Evidently, you guys talked about this at the very beginning. What is your follow through as far as the policy? Do you want me to draft a policy? How does that?
So it'll go to the ORC, the Ordinance Review Committee, and they will draft the policy that will then come to us to vote to approve.
Okay. Just in the conversations that I've had with Brunswick and Cumberland both, there was no specific policy other than the vendor had to have, it had to be a licensed vendor and it had to, show proof of insurance that they could do that type of thing. Catering service type of deal. So I've just, they did say that there are some gray areas around it, but, in both situations, and every situation is a little bit different. So I don't know what you're looking for a specific policy. I guess that's what I'm kind of wondering.
So it's actually going to be a bit broader than just the alcohol piece. It's going to be a policy that really outlines use of town property in general. Because we talked about the fact that we don't really have a lot of concrete rules on that. We just approve or not.
Okay.
So that will then include the alcohol piece will be part of that.
Okay. All right. No, thank you. Thank you for at least putting it forward to that.
Pam, was that a wave?
Dwayne, if you have some copies of some policies you want to send over to the ordinance review, they'd probably appreciate having them.
Well, I'll call around. Dennis has probably done this already.
I've already got plenty, so.
Don't reinvent the wheel then.
No.
Terry?
That was exactly what I was going to ask, but also I was just going to say, I wonder, Dwayne, if you have any specific idea that you would like to see as part of the policy. Is there something that you need other than what you just said?
I'm looking for it for a weekly program, but I'm also looking for it as far as rentals of the building for receptions, fundraisers, all the types of things that I mentioned in the email that I sent to you guys as well. So.
Okay.
Great. All right. If there's nothing else, I will close us down for the evening. Thank you, everyone. I feel like we got quite a bit accomplished tonight. It's a great discussion, so I appreciate your time. All right.